The Prime Minister will be speaking in what is going to be an extremely critical speech today, given all the allegations. Not sure whether he will directly respond to Rahul Gandhi, but certainly there will be a message for the opposition each time the Prime Minister speaks in Parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, we broke a story of AI-132, a flight that was coming in from London Heathrow to Bengaluru, and a very major glitch was reported, and it is the exact same technical glitch that perhaps caused the crash of the Ahmedabad AI-171 flight. Air India has been pulled up this time by UK aviation authorities, and they've been asked a question about how that flight even took off from London, and how is it that Air India has managed to give everyone a clean sheet. So essentially the clean sheet that Air India has given itself and the DGCA given to Air India, now all of that comes under the scanner. It's strange that the entire focus is on Air India, while Air India itself says absolutely nothing is wrong and tries to blame pilots for this. In fact, Britain's Aviation Authority has specifically asked Air India to explain how the Boeing Dreamliner passenger jet, which was grounded on arrival in Bengaluru for safety checks, even took off from London in the first place on Sunday with that faulty fuel switch. That is what the letter says, according to different reports now coming in from the UK. The UK Civil Aviation Authority, or the CAA, equivalent of India's DGCA, has asked Air India that question, also warning of the possibility of regulatory action against Air India and its Boeing 787 fleet if the airline does not submit a complete response within a week. I have Captain Ehsan Khalid joining us on the broadcast on this very important story. Captain Khalid, it's strange that, you were there when we discussed that report that spoke of a faulty switch, possibly that led to the Ahmedabad crash. And now when a pilot claimed a similar incident on another plane or another flight, the attempt has been to cover up and admit, or rather pretend that everything is okay, than to do proper checks. Now, what do you make of it, sir? We've debated this. UK is now worried. India, for some reason, our DGCA, our ministry, Air India included, they're all pretending like everything is okay. How does this work?
Okay, very good morning to you and all your viewers. Very sad way of looking at such a difficult and such a disastrous accident that we had on AI-171. Number one, a fuel switch malfunction being reported by pilots at London should have actually got a IB board from India to fly down there and see it firsthand as to what the problem is. All the documents pertaining to the aircraft and to the maintenance of that aircraft should have been seized. The FDR should have been seized to see, because now there are not two dead pilots talking. There are three living pilots and probably one or two engineers who attended to that before putting that snag in the paper. So there are 5 technically qualified, trained individuals who said that there was a switch that moves from run to cut off when pushed slightly, that is without the intention of pilot. This is what the dead pilot, late Captain Sumit Sabharwal, probably said on the CVR, though I don't have the access to CVR, that I did not do it. That means the switch did move on its own. That's the pilot's dying declaration. Here, there are 5 living pilots who have, there are 3 pilots whose name I see on the tech log. Okay, so I would say that all these 3 pilots were on board and they would have seen that this is a problem existing. Then there must have been an engineer who would write it down there, and after some time the aircraft was cleared. It should not have been cleared. Now the second point is, I hear from the public media that Boeing or a spokesperson of Boeing has said that the switch was not being properly operated. There was nothing wrong with the snag. Correct me if I am wrong in making this statement. Have you also heard this?
You're right.
That the switch was okay. That means Boeing now comes up with a statement to their own acceptance that if the switch is not operated in somewhat right manner, it can go to run to switch off. Now, it is such an important thing that it should issue a warning bulletin to the entire fleet, because it is to their acceptance that in some way, if it is wrongly operated, it will cause the fuel to go from run to switch off. Now, they haven't issued that, and the aircraft went on to flight. I don't know how will they stitch this whole blunder, because the fact remains that exactly the same thing could have happened on the last aircraft, where the aircraft was probably on the takeoff leg, and the aircraft on the takeoff leg. Let me tell you why these fuel switches are also guarded. Because when you are accelerating and when you have jerks on the runway, there is nothing that should move on its own. And if that is what has happened on Air India 171 and the switches were malfunctional, now we have pilots reporting that without much of effort from the pilot side, the switch moved from there to that place. So you will have that kind of pressure on the aircraft when it is running for the takeoff or when it is coming up for the takeoff run, because when you rotate the aircraft, all the objects in the aircraft go through positive G. Now, that is slightest force that was being applied by the pilot when the aircraft was being started up at London. That means at the time of rotation, that force can come by the virtue of the aircraft being rotated, and the switch can move from there to run to off position, and that is exactly what might have happened. What I'm saying is, how could it be taken so lightly? All the statement of the pilots have to become integral part of the evidence and AIB investigation, and the whole discussion about what went wrong, should actually now be steered through with this new finding.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that, because it just matches, isn't it? Because you had in Ahmedabad fuel switch cutoff, this plane fuel switch cutoff that took off from London. In the Ahmedabad crash, from the recordings, the so-called recordings, they said, they claimed that the pilot said, I didn't do it, right? It wasn't me,
Absolutely,
or I didn't do
right.
it, or something like that. And in this particular case, the pilots are saying exactly that the fuel switch cut off. And it's not the first time that something like this has been reported. There are different videos doing the round. So it can't be that the entire world is wrong and just Air India and DGCA is right. There's something very, 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 very serious, ladies and gentlemen.